Yeah, make sure it's recording.
And we're recording live. Hey.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by. Our guest today, he coaches entrepreneurial leaders to help you organize and unclutter your life so your business and your life can be easy, meaningful, and joyous. Jonathan is a personal growth athlete, finding you the solutions to some of these questions. How can I get better at navigating life's changes? How can I find a path that fills me with more meaning? And how can I be happier now? Because, we all need to know that. His gift is to distill this wisdom into practical, easy to understand, and simply to apply tools that make your life easier. And most of all, the most important part, seeing how clear the path on how to get from where you are now to living in your beautiful future. Please welcome Jonathan Dominsky. Hey, Jonathan, how you doing?
Hey, Devin, there's nowhere I'd rather be than talking with you and Nigel, so I'm doing pretty great.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah. Hey, Jonathan. Jonathan, I just want to say thanks so much for coming on. Jonathan and I have known each other for a lot of years. We are classmates actually at an MIT entrepreneurial conclave in Boston. And it's kind of interesting because Jonathan, we have these focus groups called forum groups inside our conclave, and Jonathan was actually our moderator and guided leader for a bunch of years in one of my forum groups. And in the breaks, Jonathan and I would go for these long walks out in the countryside. And we would chat, and I just found, having these amazing conversations with John, because he's a deep thinker, and a very critical, deep thinker. And I used to come back with a lot of these questions that I had not 100% solved, but I was on my way there. And he really kind of cracked open a lot of thoughts and thought processes for me. So I just want to, thank Jonathan for that. And actually, this part of our show, what we do is we do something called Two Truths and a Lie. And so I'm going to okay, I've got them here on my screen.
Yeah.
So Jonathan has provided us with two things that are true and one that isn't so true. So, and Dev and I are going to guess which is which. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So number one, between 1994 and 2012, I spoke more Chinese than English.
Oh.
Wow. Okay.
Oh,
I knew that yeah. Okay. Yeah. And there's another one. Number two is I've read nearly 3,000 books.
Wow.
That's incredible. That's incredible. That's a lot of books. That's a lot of words.
If it's true.
If it's true. And last but not least, in 2007, I had a cameo on Chinese national television for the Chinese New Year celebration gala, watched by 700 million people. Oh my gosh.
That sounds awesome.
Jonathan, Devin, what do you
those are
think
all so good. They all kind of intertwine with each other. It's just so good. Oh man.
What do you think, Dev?
The books or the TV? Or speaking more Chinese than English also sounds interesting. But let's go with the 3,000 bucks. Let's just go for the middle and throw it in there.
And I'll go with the Chinese than English, because I know you speak a lot of Chinese, but I don't know, man. It's good. So, what is it there, Jonathan?
The final answers. What do you guys think?
I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking.
So speaking more Chinese than English between 1994 and 2012, and reading about 3,000 books. Both of those are true. I have never been on Chinese TV. I have been in Chinese radio in front of over 1 million people, but never on TV. But maybe someday.
Incredible. So I know that you spoke Chinese, but I didn't know that you were, that fluent that you spoke more Chinese than English. My goodness, that's fantastic.
The week after I graduated from college, I was on a plane with a one-way ticket to China. And I spent the next 17 months there. I'd studied Chinese in college.
Wow.
And for that 17 months, I spoke English maybe 40 minutes a week. I'd call home to my parents or something. And the rest of the time was all Chinese. It was just me and my notebook. Every time I heard or saw a word I didn't know, I'd write it down. Sometimes I was learning 50, 60, 70 new words a day.
Wow.
And 3 weeks into the trip, I met the woman who's now my wife.
Yeah.
And I mean, now her English is nearly perfect, but at the time, very limited. So we just got used to speaking in Chinese. And I'm a naturally introverted person. I don't talk to a lot of people. But I talked to my wife. I talked to our other Chinese friends, and yeah, for all that time until my son turned 3, and then we decided, it's probably time for us to introduce him to English. His first language is Chinese.
Well, fantastic.
And, we switched, and that turned the tide.
Wow. Yeah, because I know, Dev's mom is Japanese, and but she came here when she was 4 years old to Canada. And I just wish that we spoke a little bit of Japanese. Hey, Dev. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
it's not too late.
Starting at the young age, but it's not too late. It's not too late. No.
Yeah. I mean, you guys know a little bit, some words and whatnot.
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
It's important for us that our son, he just turned 12, that he speaks Chinese, and he resists it sometimes. And I tell him, like, you can learn it as an adult, but do you know how hard it was? Like, I spent so much effort doing this, and it's just being spoon-fed to you. I mean, come on.
Totally.
Yeah.
3 new characters a day.
Yeah. The best is immersion, right? If you're speaking it all the time. I was fortunate. When I was young, like you, when I got out of college, I was working in Venezuela for a while. Then I was working in Brazil for a while, and I was like forced to learn. My Spanish isn't very good. My Portuguese was better, but that was 30 years ago, and I don't have anybody to practice with. I can understand, when I hear people talking, and I can get by in both the languages, but it's that submersion. Yeah. Dev, have you got a question there?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
I think you got one.
Yeah, I know, Jonathan. So I know that you coach people into living, their better lives, operating their businesses easier. But my question is for you. What are some things that you're hearing a lot of people struggle with these days, especially the younger entrepreneurs, in their mid to late 20s, because I know you were a young entrepreneur yourself at like the age of 24, you started some ventures or whatnot, but dealing with different types of like stress from, maintaining a perfect online presence through social media, or just like obsession with materialistic goals, or even depression due to like COVID isolation or whatnot.
Well, I work with a number of young entrepreneurs, and I'm delighted to answer your question. But first, let me ask you, what are some of the things that you've been dealing with this last year of COVID, living with your parents and all that stuff?
Well, living with them is great. We have good family dinners, sushi dinners, drink the sake, all that stuff. So it's been great, but definitely me and my girlfriend's company have been suffering, a great deal, because we're in the entertainment industry. We do live performances for big gatherings of weddings and, clubs and movies and show and whatnot. Right. So it took a big hit right there, because business just went straight down. So we're trying to find a way to remodel our stuff to do online classes and stuff. But that's kind of our biggest struggle, is just losing the market, I guess, a lot.
Yeah, there's been so much disruption, but here's the 2 things that I hear more than anything else. One, it's Groundhog Day. Every day's the same. There's nothing to look forward to. I can't go out to dinner. I can't go to a concert. I'm just stuck at home with my family all day, and that has its pluses. But without the external structure that we're used to having, the natural response that most people have is just to stop doing everything. And it's a big difference, 24 versus 12. But I'll share an example for my son. He's a musician for years. He's been part of this outstanding program called School of Rock, and he sings, he plays like guitar, piano, drums, a few other instruments, and he loves it. And then when the pandemic hit, everything was canceled, and he can't go to his classes, and they can't do their concerts. And for the first 2 or 3 weeks, it was actually kind of cool, because we were spending all this time together, and he had all this free time. He didn't have to go to school, so he was playing music like 2-3 hours a day. But then after a few weeks, it started trailing off. And then there was 3 months that went by where he didn't touch his guitar at all. Because for him, it's all about being social. And if he couldn't do it the way that do what he was used to. He just didn't want to do it at all.
Right.
So summer came, and I said, his name's Kubla. Kubla, just, you can't do School of Rock, but you could still play music, and it could still be social. You could still do it with friends. Why don't you start your own band? So he's 12 years old. He goes across the street to a neighbor girl. She's 18. She plays piano. Invited her to join the band. He called up an old drummer that was in one of his School of Rock bands and a bass player. And for 3 months, once a week, they would meet in our backyard, socially distanced, wearing masks, and they started their band. And they would play and they practiced and they chose their songs. And then in October, they had a public concert. It was in the park. There were maybe 30 people, again, all socially distanced, wearing masks. It was all very safe. 15 or so were friends and family. The rest were just passersby. It was a real concert.
Wow.
And it was a real musical social experience. But it was different than the one that he was used to. The one that he was used to was impossible. So the first thing that I would ask for anyone that I was coaching, whether they're young or old like me and your dad, is what are the things in your life that you've learned to accept that you would have never consciously chosen?
Right.
What are the things in your life that you've learned to accept that you would have never consciously chosen? Well, I would have never consciously chosen not, having to close my business because all of these live events are canceled, or I don't know if you close your business, but whatever it is, that's something you would have never consciously chosen, but maybe it's something that you've learned to accept.
Right.
And you can't do it the way that you're used to. But there's a reason, there's a deep why for why you chose to do this business. And that why has an expression that's different, an alternative expression that's different from what you're used to.
Yeah.
And I would work with you and I would ask you, do you know what your why is for your business?
Yeah, so we feel really passionate about bringing just arts back to the community, just having things and having people be like expressive with their body through dance and just art in general. I think it's just, all over like Europe and stuff, you have so many of these things. It's like, you guarantee you go somewhere, you see a show. There's always a dinner and a show, right? Like that's the thing. So we're just trying to bring that back into the normal,
Yeah. So art in the community and
art in the community,
bodily expression.
Absolutely.
So you can't do it the way that you used to do it, but there are other ways to do it. And I want to introduce a concept called the outward mindset. The opposite of an outward mindset is an inward mindset. And that's what most of us have most of the time. With an inward mindset, we care about our goals, our needs, our challenges. And the opposite of an inward mindset is an outward mindset, where we see other people as people who have their own needs, challenges, and objectives that are just as important to our own. With an inward mindset, to the extent that we think of other people at all, it's they're either vehicles to get what we want, or they're obstacles that are in our way. Devin, let's pretend that you're at the top of a hill, and I give you a ball, and I ask you to push the ball down the hill. What's going to happen to the ball?
Ball is going to roll down the hill. All
right. Now let's pretend we're both at the top of the hill, and you try to push me down the hill. What's going to happen?
You might be resistance and rolling down the hill.
Yeah, it's. I don't know what your experience is, but when I was a kid and I played King of the Hill and I pushed someone, it never happened that they said, "Oh no, Jonathan, he pushed me down the hill." They're not a ball; they're a person. They push back.
They're a person, yeah.
Your inward mindset provokes an inward mindset in others. But if you could have an outward mindset, if you could be more interested in what other people need and helping them achieve their goals, it opens up all these possibilities. So. Before I was a full-time coach, I'm a serial entrepreneur. My primary business was Kidorable. It's fun, practical, unique children's accessories. If you've ever seen umbrellas or rainbows that look like frogs and ladybugs and stuff like that, that's us.
Yeah.
And we built our business on small independent retailers. A $5,000 wholesale account was a really good customer for us. And we used to have a sales goal, an inward sales goal, that we wanted to bring our customers up to $5,000 in sales. We wanted to ship $5,000 out the door.
Right.
Eventually, we shifted to an outward mindset where we had a goal that we wanted our customers to sell $10,000 of our product. Most of our customers have 100% markup. We ship $5,000. They sell it for 10. But by the goal, so the actual sales were the same for us, whichever way we phrased the goal.
Right.
But when we were focused on $5,000 in sales, it just meant it had to go out the door. But when we were focused on having our customers actually sell $10,000, well, then we have to make them successful selling our product. We have to educate them. Maybe when we come out with a new product, we should guarantee that it's going to sell and we'll take it back if it doesn't, to encourage them to sell more. Maybe we have to give them some promotional support, help them with their displays. It opens up all these possibilities to make everybody more successful. And similarly for your why, for your business, if the goal is to get people to pay you money, and of course, I mean, that's part of the goal. That's part of your objective, your inward objective. It's not that your needs, challenges, and objectives don't matter. But if that's all you're focused on, then, well, people don't want to go out right now and hand you money. So that's hard. But if you think of it in an outward mindset, I want 10,000 people, I want 100,000 people to experience art in their communities and to get moving. Well, there's all sorts of ways you can do that. And with that outward mindset, it opens up that possibility. And another answer to your question, what thing are people dealing with? There's a lot of people who had big plans before the pandemic hit. And now they can't do those things. And a lot of them are waiting for the pandemic to end.
Yes.
So they could start living their lives again. But you don't live in the future. Your life's happening right now. And if you're remembering a really nice memory from the past, or if you're resentful about something in the past, you're feeling that right now. And if you're planning the future, and if you're waiting for the future, when that future arrives, it will be happening right now. You can't wait to live your life. And the secret is to be very clear on your why, to be very clear on a vision of where you want to go. I want to bring art to 100,000 people that they'll feel in a bodily way, so they want to get up and get moving. And then you look at where you are right now without judgment. Accept it exactly the way that it is. That's the only way to be happy. And then if you want things to be different, what's your vision for the future? Look at the gap. What's missing? And then what is an action you could take that's going to bridge that gap? And maybe it'll be different than you had in mind in the first place.
Wow.
We can all do that all the time.
Incredible. Wow. Well, I think I owe you some money for a freaking coaching session.
I told you Jonathan was a deep thinker.
That's incredible.
We'd walk for, we'd probably be late coming back to class because we were getting in depth into these discussions. And oh
man,
incredible. It's really interesting you said that, because I know at the beginning of the pandemic, it was kind of this nuance that, I can work from home. I can, going to hang out, just like you said, with your son. It was all kind of a nuance. And then, I know when we were down in Vancouver here, and our house was kind of under construction, and Devin had found, he was, doing some courses online, and then he found this Wim Hof, which is this deep breathing meditation, cold water fellow. And so Devin introduced me to some of this breathing techniques, and so we got our whole family here got into this kind of the health side of things. Okay, let's, we've got this, we don't know how long this pandemic is going to last. Let's look at a little bit more inward and practice. And we chose to go this breathing, do the breathing, and then, cold plunges, and, I couldn't even go cold water for like 10 seconds. And now, it's this thing I have to do every day. And we're, we're going up to Whistler. We're breaking a hole in the ice in a lake, and we're going in the lake, but it was a progression. I mean, I didn't do it all. It was a progression, but it's something that, evolved out of this, and, moving forward, as opposed to be, we're all bottled up, but what can we do while we're bottled up to increase, our awareness, to increase our health, to increase our spirituality, or whatever it is. And I've found that for us anyway, there's been a lot of really interesting things in the silence. The silence, and there's a lot of self-discovery, and so what, so Jonathan, what, when you first meet a client, what's one of the first questions that you would ask them?
So
one of the most important questions.
So I start by just finding out a little bit about them, and asking them about their business, asking about their relationships, and whether I use these words or not, I'm looking for the answer to this question: what you've learned to accept in your life that you would have never consciously chosen, and now you're ready to take action, but maybe you don't know how. That's where we start. And it's before someone could work on something big. Most people have all this clutter in their lives, all this emotional clutter, all this drama, all this stuff going on that doesn't really matter, but it takes up all this space.
Yes.
So the first thing I do is I listen, I try to identify what's their big issue, and then what's in their way. And it's hard to be thoughtful. It's hard to think about your big issue and how to reorient your business, or how to turn your relationship around, or find a direction for your life, or whatever that is, if you have all this drama. So the first thing we do is we just simplify everything, and we remove all these causes of drama. I'll share a story from when my son was 3 years old. He had this big sweet tooth. He just loves sweets. He wanted sweets all the time. And this is a fight that we had in our family probably a couple times a day. So my son would walk up to me and he'd say, like, I want a cookie. And I'd say, no, like not before lunch. I want a cookie. And my wife and I would fight about it too, because she was more likely than me to give in. And I remember after one of these sweet squabbles, my son, he was sitting in a corner, joylessly eating the cookie that he whined out of my wife. There's crumbs, all over his lap. My wife and I are at opposite ends of the room. And I'm just thinking, why can't we just enjoy lunch together? Like, why is this so hard? So in a flash of inspiration, I picked up an old cardboard box, a pair of scissors, some crayons. I cut out 2 circles in the box, and with the crayons, I decorated, I wrote, sweet token, good for 1 sweet. Walk over to my son, I hand them to him, I explain to him, he's 3 years old, I explain to him what they say. And I say, so Kubla, what's gonna happen when you give me a sweet token? You're gonna give me a sweet. That's right, anytime except before breakfast. What's gonna happen when you give me another sweet token? Give me another sweet. That's right, and when they're gone until they magically reappear the next day. And then magically, we stop fighting about this, and think about that. 2 fewer fights a day. Let's call it 6 days a week. That's 600 fewer fights a year. It's 6,000 fewer fights a decade.
Yeah.
So we take these little things, like, what are these things that you're fighting about in your life? What are these things where you're causing drama? What's a simple, easy solution? And they're usually simple, easy solutions for the clutter, not for the big stuff, but for the clutter.
Yeah.
And we solve them, and we create a clearing so that we can think about these things. And then find out, what are the things that are important to you? What are the things that are going to make a big impact in your life, large and small? For your family, it included this, dipping yourself in ice water in the quiet. That's and that works for you, and more power to you. That's not for everybody.
I know.
But what are the things for you? Is it prayer? Is it meditation? Is it exercise? Is it getting out into nature? Is it spending time with your family? Is it eating healthy food? What are the foundational habits that are going to make a big impact in your life? And once we've identified those, willpower is never enough. Our conscious minds are like an ant riding the elephant of our subconscious. And the ant could say, like, hey, look over there. And maybe the elephant will turn its head. But there is nothing that the ant cannot pull the reins on the elephant and get it to go where it wants to go. So what are we to do? And one solution is habits, rituals, routines. It takes conscious thought away, so it just automatically happens. Devin, let me ask you a question. Did you remember to brush your teeth last night?
I did.
What about the night before that?
That's correct.
That's amazing. Did you have some incredible fondness for toothpaste?
Somewhat.
Do you have some amazing fondness for toothpaste?
No, I have Arm & Hammer. It's pretty good.
Of course not. You
But
brush your teeth because you do it before you go to bed. You don't have to remember to brush your teeth. It's just part of your nighttime routine.
Yeah.
If instead you had to brush your teeth sometime during the afternoon, half the time you'd forget.
Right.
So once we've identified these activities, these foundational activities that build the kind of life that you want, and we'll add in some more that bring you flow and joy and all that other stuff, the easiest way to make it a habit is to tie it to one of your natural rhythms.
Right.
Every day, whether you want to or not, you wake up, you go to the bathroom, you have breakfast, you start work, you take a break for lunch, you end work, you get ready for bed. These are things that you do automatically. And like brushing your teeth, if we could tie one of your habits to it, it's just more likely to get done, whether it's exercise or anything else. If you know that you exercise the last thing before breakfast, then as soon as you start to feel hungry, it's a natural trigger, it's a natural reminder to do that. And if it's for whatever reason not appropriate in your circumstances to tie one of your natural rhythms, then the next best thing would be to put it on your calendar. We scheduled this, our conversation today.
Yeah.
But let's pretend that you had a dentist appointment right now.
Mm-hmm.
If I said, "Hey, can we start our meeting at at 9:00?" You would say, "Oh no, I can't do it at 9. I have a dentist appointment." But maybe we could do it a couple hours later.
Mm-hmm.
So make an appointment with yourself. If you're having trouble finding the time to pay your taxes, if you're having trouble finding the time to have lunch with your family,
you know what's really interesting, Jonathan, you kind of hit the nail on the head here, is that this whole COVID thing, a lot of people are working from home. And when I wasn't working from home, I would, I'd get up and, for years and years, I had a coach too, and he kind of smacked me for this. But what do most people do? What did I do when I first got up? There were Blackberries back in the day. Remember the Blackberry, so you would get up, and before you'd even brush your teeth, you would check your Blackberry. And as soon as you did that, you were in a different mindset. But you start vibrating. You're vibrating like this when you get out of bed. And you start vibrating like this because I got to do this. I got to do this today. And and then my coach helped coach me out of that. Checking my phone, don't check it until 9:00, no matter what. That's the deal. But then with COVID, I noticed, pre-COVID, I was rushing around trying to get to my office, and I call it in my book, I call it the doorknob effect. I would reach out, touch the doorknob of my office, and I would take a deep breath. I'd turn it and I'd step through into the bee's nest of the day because everybody wanted me, and it was just chaos. And I did that every day for 20 years.
Yeah.
COVID now, with the help of Devin and all this routine, and I love that. And it's because a lot of us are working from home. There really is. I don't think there's an excuse not to get up half an hour earlier and, you brush your teeth and then do some quiet breathing or some meditation, whatever it is, or a little bit of a workout, and just set your day up before you check your Blackberries and before you do your Zoom calls. My neighbor the other day told me he was on a 10-hour Zoom call. I mean, can you imagine 10-hour Zoom calls? But that's what it's become. So, and I found, so now I'm religious. I get up before anybody's awake. I come down, I have a shot of I have this ginger and beet juice, and I just have a shot of that. And then I do all my stretching, and I put on some meditation music, and I do all the stretching, and I do this back exercises. And then I go do my cold, I do my cold plunge, my ice plunge.
Yeah.
And boom, then I'm ready for my coffee, and I'm ready for the day, and I'm just so dialed in, and I'm so calm, and I'm not on that crazy vibration but it's like you said, it's setting my mindset now. I do this like I brush my teeth.
Yeah.
Like I automatically do it. And if I don't do it, I get a bit edgy. And it's once you get into the rhythm of doing it, it becomes fairly easy. And you actually, it's almost an addiction too, because you just get in this thing. I got to do this every morning, and I feel great. And so I think that's exactly what, so you hit the nail on the head there, is getting into this rhythm or this,
We're all the sum of our habits. And some of those habits are healthy and they work for us, and some of them aren't. And the trick is to be intentional.
Yeah.
4 years ago, my father took me and my son to a Cubs game, his first.
Right. Yeah, in Chicago.
My son, he was bored to tears. He literally cried. We wound up going home. Going home early. But the point of the story is that on the way home, I had taken my phone out of my pocket and I put it in the car door.
Yeah.
And my dad dropped us off. And maybe 20 seconds after he left, I realized I left my phone in his car. And there was a part of me that wanted to rush into the house and call him up and tell him to turn around. And then there was another part of me a minute later that said, keep it. I don't want my phone back until I decide the relationship I want to have with my phone. Right. I'd gotten back from one of these China trips about a month earlier. And when I'm at home, usually I don't check email, into the evening. Maybe I'll read the news or something, but I don't use my phone a lot in the evening. But in China, because of the time difference, and I'm running a business, the very last thing I do before I go to bed in China is I look at my phone and I see if anyone needs anything from me in our Chicago office. And I kept that habit when I got back to Chicago, and I didn't like it. And I didn't know what relationship I wanted with my phone, but I knew I didn't want it to be that. So I waited 3 or 4 days, and then I said, okay, yeah, I'm good now. Then I drove over there and I picked it up. Right. But it's not just about having habits; it's having the right habits and being intentional and choosing these habits. And if you can't tie it to your natural rhythms, put it in your schedule. If you can't put it in your schedule, get an accountability partner to do it with you. If it's hard for you to get out of bed and jump in the cold water, then do it with your family and let them get you out of bed and jump in the cold water.
Yeah.
So, Jonathan, out of these things, like, holding oneself accountable or tying these things to our natural rhythms or dealing with the clutter in one's life, what are the hardest things that you have to find that you have to keep repeating yourself to your clients? Hey, this has got to change. Or what is something that people hold on to and it's really hard for them to change?
Yeah. So there's two parts to that question. So as entrepreneurs, we go to EO events and YPO and Birthing of Giants and Gathering of Titans and all these universities. We read all these books and we listen to all these podcasts and we think, if only we could learn one thing that we could apply to our business or apply to our life and be worthwhile. And that's all good as far as it goes. It's impossible to be successful in your life and business if you don't have this kind of technical knowledge. But for most of us, the problem is not in front of us. The problem's between our ears. If you've had a problem, if you've had a challenge that you've been struggling with for years, and everyone around you says, Devin, what's your problem? Like, why don't you just fix it? But you're still unable to. Then reading another book or talking to a coach and having them share a best practice with you will not help you solve your problem, because if it was that simple, any smart, capable, hardworking person would have solved it a long time ago. So what's going on? The reason why people can't change, even when they know what the right thing to do is, even when they're highly motivated to do it, is because there's something else going on. And it's that whole ant and the elephant again. Devin or Nigel, is there a problem? Is there a challenge that you've been working on for years and just it always seems like it's one step forward and two steps back?
Oh, yeah.
From a client that I worked with.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah. We've all got things.
So one of the people that I did this work with to help get what he most wants in life is Phil. He's an entrepreneur. He sold his business before he was 50. He's retired. He's a good-looking guy, funny. Phil went through a really messy divorce about 15 years ago. And he is committed to finding a woman who he could deeply connect with. But over this, in the last many years, he's probably been on dates with 200 women.
Wow.
And none of them has made it to a fifth date. So I asked him, what are behaviors that you do? What are things that you do that sabotage this conscious commitment to having a deep emotional connection with someone? And we came up with a big list. And some of the items on the list were, physical attractiveness is his primary criteria. All right, so that eliminates a bunch of people. When he's on a date, he always fixates on what's wrong. And then, or finds something that's wrong, and then, it's probably not going to work out. He'll fantasize about them being together for another 10 years and all the problems that they're going to have. He does all these behaviors that sabotage his success. So then I asked him, someone who does these things, what else might they be committed to? Someone who does these things, what else might they be committed to? And we came up with we brainstormed some ideas, like, well, someone who does this might be committed to this or that. And the one that resonated with him, the one that just as soon as he heard it, he just said, oh my gosh, that's true. I didn't realize I was committed to this. I didn't want to be committed to this, but I'm committed to not being stuck in a relationship and have it be bad. I'm committed to that. These hidden commitments, these subconscious commitments, are self-protective. They don't serve us. They serve the elephant of our subconscious to protect us from pain. So then we did another step and we said, okay, someone who's committed to not being stuck in a relationship and not being able to get out, what's a belief they might have? What's a big assumption they might have about the world that would make that commitment seem entirely reasonable? So again, we brainstormed a few different ideas. So someone who's committed to not being stuck in a relationship, what might they believe? And what we came up with was Phil is committed to not being stuck in a relationship because if he does get in a relationship, it's going to get bad and he's not going to be able to leave. Now, I asked him then, is there any evidence that that substantiates this? Is this belief just absurd? Is it entirely true? Or is it partially true? And he said, well, you know, early on in my marriage, my daughter was 2 and I things were bad and I was stuck and I felt I couldn't leave. Like, all right, Phil, your youngest kid's 17 years old. You know, like what's going to keep you stuck in a relationship?
Yeah.
This is something that used to be true. It's just no longer true anymore. And as soon as a light was shined on that belief, it crumbled. And as soon as the belief crumbled, the competing commitment lost its power. And as soon as the competing commitment lost its power, all those sabotaging behaviors, they effortlessly fell away. And a couple of weeks later, he reached out to an old flame. We had this conversation in October, and they've been together ever since. More than 5 dates. Now, sometimes it's instant like that. You just come up with your belief and you're like, what? Like, yeah, I guess I believe that, but why? It's so stupid.
Yeah.
So what's more common is you believe something and it's partially true. And in that case, we do some safe, low-risk tests. So I'm having trouble thinking of an example off the top of my head, but we would do a test in a way that if it fails, it's not going to be a big deal. And we'll try to find the contours of this belief. Who are the people with whom it is true? What are the situations that it is true? What are the stakes? Like, does it even matter that it's true? And with that usually takes a little bit longer. That'll be more
right.
than
So what?
Yeah.
So yeah, you have all these tools in your toolkit, right? That you work with all your clients. So what would be your favorite? I don't know if you have a favorite, but like a favorite tool that you would use with your clients.
Yeah.
Is there something there that
so I have
our audience? Yeah.
I have dozens of tools and we use the right one for the right situation. But
yeah,
truly my favorite one, and it's one that you could do yourself anytime, is to take a thought that causes you stress, causes you suffering, and choose a different thought to displace it. And if we have 10 minutes, I could do it live with you right now.
Wow. Yeah, we got a couple of minutes. Sure.
What's so Nigel, how about you? We did Devin last time. What's okay. A thought that causes you stress or suffering?
A thought that caused me stress and suffering. I've got a little bit of a legal case down in Houston, Texas we're dealing with.
Sure, let's talk
that's with my business. Yeah.
So name the thought.
Name the thought.
This suit in Texas is horrible and I hate it and it's draining or whatever. Like what's the thought?
Yeah, it's just extremely draining.
Yeah. All right. So this I don't like this lawsuit in Texas because it's draining. That's the thought.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm going to share with you 3 maps that's going to illustrate what we're going to do here today. So the reason why this process works is that reality is simply too complex for any of us to understand in its totality. And so we come up with models to help make sense of the world. So start with a familiar story. 1492, Columbus sails west from Spain across the Atlantic. He intends to arrive in India a few weeks later. Now, the map that Columbus used was not very accurate. And it showed that Japan was about 2,000 miles away from Spain. So with this map of the world, it makes perfect sense to risk it. Now, Japan is a lot more than 2,000 miles away from Spain. It was only Columbus's ignorance of the existence of the New World that saved him from starvation and certain death, never to be known by history.
Right.
But with his map of the world, it made sense.
Sure.
Now, we're a lot more sophisticated than people were in Columbus's day. Imagine one of those beautiful satellite pictures of the Earth with the pale blue dot with the stars in the background. Mm-hmm. Nigel, is that picture of the Earth real?
Is that in my perception? Yeah, it's real. Yeah.
So it's more real than Columbus's map, but it's a two-dimensional circle that depicts an immense sphere. It doesn't have a billionth of the detail. It can't tell me how to get to the airport. It can't tell me where to buy a good sandwich. I mean, it's useful, but it has real limits. Let's zoom in now. Mm-hmm. And with one of those amazing satellite photos, they could zoom in and you see a single blade of grass.
Yes.
Is this map of the Earth real?
It's real for the blade of the grass.
Yeah, but it's missing everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a map of the world, but it's, I mean, to use that to live your life. I mean, oh my gosh. So let's take your thought. I have this suit in Texas and it's draining and I hate it.
Yeah. Let's
see which of these maps that you use. Let's see if it's complete fabrication and just distortion of reality like Columbus's map, or if it's, if you're looking at a blade of grass, or if you're, looking at the whole Earth and missing all the detail. Are there things that you could point to that substantiate that it might be true that it's draining?
Yeah.
What's one?
Anxiety attacks.
All right, you're having anxiety attacks. All right, so you're not crazy. This really is draining.
Yeah, it is draining. Yeah.
Our goal here is not to prove that your original thought is wrong. Mm-hmm. What I want you to walk away from is this is a pinprick view of reality.
Sure.
But what if we could find one that's over here that brings you joy, that brings you peace, and that maybe is even more useful for you to solve your problems, and shine a light on that. And then we can make it grow. So let's try to do that. What's an alternative interpretation, an alternative explanation of events that might be true, that you wish would be true, that would be more empowering?
It was just I don't know, confusion or something. I don't know.
This was all just a big misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding. Yeah, it was an error by. Well, yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's try on with a few other possibilities. So one, this is a whole lot of, much ado about nothing. Mm-hmm. Maybe, you were telling me earlier about your breathing and your cold water
plunge. Yeah.
Treatments. It's easy to feel peaceful and joyful when you're meditating. It's easy to feel peaceful and joyful when you're having a delightful dinner with your family. It's a lot harder to feel peaceful and joyful when you're being punched in the face.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe this is exactly the lesson that you need to learn how to bring that same feeling of peace and joy to your life, regardless of your external circumstances. Let's think of another one. I am so lucky that this is only costing me $500,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lesson now.
How'd you know that? Yeah.
I've been there before. What an incredible education. And aren't we lucky that we deal with this like civilized people in the courts as opposed to trial by combat or whatever we would have done before on our killing.
Yeah. Sometimes I'd rather combat, but
So if we had more time, we'd explore it a little bit further. But Nigel, is there one of these explanations that resonates with you that you just wish it were true?
Yeah, well, I mean, what you're saying is, and I do see this, and I do see that, I do step back from the whole situation. I go, you know what? It's a learning situation for yourself, and I tell myself, I said, you operate, best in times like this, and things get done When things are easy and complacency sets in, you get into this kind of quagmire of not. So,
Yeah.
and coming out the other end of this, I'm going to be much stronger and much wiser.
Right.
I'll tell you that much. So there's, a lot of learning. So, and I always do believe that things happen for a reason.
So learning is
learning. Yeah.
This is an opportunity for learning. The phrase that I like to say is that life is a curriculum perfectly designed for us to work out our purpose. And whatever is happening in my life, what is it that I need to learn? Who is it that I need to be? What is the action that I need to take? So it sounds like you're saying something similar to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So is there any evidence to believe that this might be true? And are you crazy in thinking this, or
no?
Might it be just as true as the original idea?
No, I know this from past history.
Yeah. All right. So again, you're not crazy. This is just as valid.
Valid as other things.
This one is just as valid as this one.
Exactly.
So the last step in this process, let's just pretend that it's true.
Mm-hmm.
In the next 30 days, if it were true, what is the action that this invites? What would you do if it were true that life is a curriculum perfectly designed for you to work out your purpose? And the lesson that you're learning right now has all to do with this lawsuit. What would you do? What are the actions that you would take?
I go with the flow. Let me
go with the flow. What else?
Go with the flow of it. Just keep learning. Learning as much as I can.
Yeah, you would do all these things. Yeah. So the next month.
And I would also just, enjoy the moment, stay in the moment, because everything is always, I just want to get through. I just want to get to this next step. It's being present.
Yeah.
Right.
So you do these things for the next 30 days. And what I think you'll find is that this new interpretation, it's more useful in achieving your objectives.
Mm-hmm.
It brings you more joy. It brings you more peace. And as you focus on it, it grows.
Yes.
And we're never saying that this original thought wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
But as you spend less attention on it, it shrinks.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much.
That's incredible. Yeah, and I think I'll. Yeah,
Deb, do you have a good question there? Oh yeah,
I do. Yeah, I got one more question. We'll wrap it all up here together with. But if you could go back to like a 24-year-old version of yourself when you're starting to trying to be an entrepreneur and whatnot, what would be your key points of wisdom that you've acquired over the years that you would share with them?
So we've talked about a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The top ones, I would say, are about how to manifest your vision.
Right.
And the way to do that is first to have a clear-eyed view on the way things are. To have a relationship with reality that is healthy, that sees things as they are, or at least as much as we can with our mental models that we use to filter the world. To embrace things exactly as they are, because that's the only way to be happy. The way things are right now, to say, yes, I choose this. And then to have a vision. Here's where I am now. Here's my vision. And just look at what's missing. And then say, what is the action I need to take to bridge that gap, so that before I know it, I'm living my beautiful future. It's not just some vision for the future. It's what I'm doing right now. And the key to it is all these other things that we've talked about. Mm-hmm. What is it in your life that you've learned to accept that you would have never consciously chosen? Well, I don't like that I'm stuck at home with COVID. Okay, how could I not be stuck at home? Or what's something, or why don't I want to be stuck at home? Well, I want to have some human connection. All right, is there a way to have some human connection that's not going out and doing the things that I used to be doing? And if you need that technical education, get that technical education. If you need help, ask for help. And if it's still not working out, work on what's in here.
Oh, incredible. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Jonathan Domsky, pronounced it wrong the first time. Sorry about that. If you want to hear more about Jonathan and all of his endeavors, we'll put a link in the description of the video. Other than that, thank you so much for being on the show. I know it means a lot to me, means a lot to my father. Thank you so much for checking in with us today and being on the podcast.
Really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Jonathan. That was absolutely super. You just want to hang on for a sec. I'll just stop the